She's currently researching on epidemiology of vestibular imbalance disorder in the general population and some special populations. Her research has been funded for many years by the National Institute of Deafness and Other Communication Disorders and the National Institutes of Health. She reviews grants for NIH and manuscripts for many professional journals. She's on the editorial board for the Journal of Vestibular Research, and she's the chairing the Committee on Vestibular Rehabilitation for Barony Society, which is an international organization of clinicians and scientists who are interested in the vestibular system. So we're very honored to have Dr. Cohen speaking to us today about vestibular therapy, I think, and balance issues. Dr. Cohen?
Well, thank you for that nice introduction. I recognize a couple of the names. I think I've met some of you before. So I've been at Baylor since 1991, and in my capacity as an occupational therapist, I provide the vestibular rehabilitation service, as Sean said, and I also do research on vestibular imbalance disorders in a variety of different ways. When Sean asked me about doing a talk for this group, we had some back and forth about what to talk about. There isn't anything really new about rehabilitation, and yet I understand that it's a topic of importance to all of you. So I thought rather than make up a formal talk, I would just give you some background information to bring people up to speed and then take questions, okay? I mean, I'm pretty good at ad-libbing. The goal of rehabilitation in general, of therapy in general, is always to make people more functional and better able to perform their activities of daily living. So for people who aren't physicians, we never try to cure people, which means you don't get hung up on trying to cure people. I don't operate on anybody. I've never been in an operating room. Don't ask me any questions about surgery because I can't answer them. But we deal with people who are not going to have surgery or are not eligible for it. The surgery doesn't meet their needs, or are preoperative, and then sometimes I see people who are postoperative. I did one study in the 90s looking at rehabilitation for people who had acoustic neuroma resections, that is to say the surgery to cut out the tumor, and who were in the hospital for 5 to 7 days. In those days, still in the 90s, you could have somebody in the hospital for that long. These days, it's impossible. Unless there are major health complications after a procedure, people go home pretty quickly. But in the early to mid 90s, they were still keeping people in the hospital for longer, so I was able to do that study. And the finding is that compared to a control group that we just talked to, giving rehabilitation really didn't do any good. There was no difference between the groups. And I think because the brain is so busy recovering from the insult from the surgery and so busy dumping out the anesthesia and recovering from all of that stuff, that the little bit of input that we could give really didn't make much of a difference. I think the brain recovers extremely quickly, very, very rapidly, in a pretty short period of time. And so my opinion is that surgery in that acute postoperative period, in those first few days, is not necessary. So if you have an acoustic neuroma and you had the surgery to take out the tumor and you didn't have therapy, you didn't miss anything. There are a couple of studies in the literature. Mine is one of them. There was another one out of Ohio State about 2 years before mine came out that said something similar. And I'm convinced that's a finding. What did make a difference in the recovery at that time was the size of the tumor. So what you have to know is that the size of the tumor affects the amount of time people are under anesthesia, because it affects how long it takes the surgeon to resect the tumor. It's a lot more complicated with a bigger tumor, of course, and more of the brainstem's involved. And the brainstem does get involved in these very large tumors. So that had an effect on recovery time. But otherwise, they really didn't make any difference. There was no sex difference. There was really no age difference. Everybody was healthy enough to have surgery. So really, if you have an acoustic neuroma that was resected and you didn't have therapy in those first few days after surgery, you didn't miss out. There is some evidence, it's a little bit questionable for what's called prehab or prehabilitation. There was one study done out of Sweden by some people I know, by Tjernström et al., University of, I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking. Anyway, with a physical therapist and a couple of neurotologists, and they looked at whether rehabilitating people, giving them extra exercise prior to having surgery made a difference in their recuperation later. And the answer is maybe. It wasn't a really strong finding. There are people that talk about prehabilitation, but I'm not convinced that it was a really good finding. There are a number of studies that have come out in the past 20 years looking at postoperative rehabilitation. Again, in the first few weeks, the answer is it doesn't make a difference. There's a couple of very nice studies that have come out of the Czech Republic, out of Prague, where there's actually a big group of vestibular scientists. There's some neurologists, some otolaryngologists, and a physical therapist. Neurologist and the physical therapist are actually friends of mine, who've done some very nice studies looking at rehabilitation of post-op acoustic neuroma patients a couple months after the fact. And those are very good studies. They're really well done. And the finding is that those people do benefit from having therapy if they haven't already fully recovered, or recovered to the extent that anybody thinks is reasonable. And I have had good experience with postoperative patients who are a couple of months out and are still experiencing balance problems and vertigo. But really, as I said, in that acute period, and even in that first month postoperatively, I don't think there's any particular bang for your buck for doing it. So the goals of therapy are always to help people become safer, more independent, better able to perform activities of daily living and go about living their lives. It's about quality of life. In order to do that, we try and focus on splinter skills, that is, specific things that people have difficulty doing. And we also work on exercises to reduce vertigo and to improve balance. So there's two kinds of approaches that are often used in tandem. And that's with most therapy. In general, in the vestibular system, we try and tackle the symptoms that come from having a vestibular disorder, and then the results of those symptoms, which are to make people have difficulty doing things for themselves. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is teach somebody a new way to do something, for example, or teach people safety considerations. For example, I hope everybody has night lights in your home. I can tell you I keep night lights in the hallways in my home that are the three-way lights that charge up when they're plugged in, so that if there's a power failure for at least an hour, I've got a little light source that I can pull out of the wall and use as a flashlight. And that was actually really useful when the power went out, because I woke up in the middle of the night and said, oh, the light's on in the hallway. The power must have gone out. And it's always useful if you need to get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom to have a little light source. So if you've got one plugged into your wall, a little tiny bit of light makes a big difference. So I recommend everybody needs night lights in the home, a night light in your bathroom. You don't want to turn on a big bright light that's going to wake you up so you won't be able to go back to sleep. But a little light source, a little 1-watt bulb is really useful. Everybody needs a flashlight around. Hey, this is Houston. Most of us are here in Houston, and even in other parts of the country where we get power outages from hurricanes, from other kinds of storms. So we've all got flashlights. Keep a flashlight in your car, in your purse, in your backpack. I like those little, very bright flashlights because they make a lot of light. That's actually better than the flashlight app on my smartphone, which is right here. Where is it? It is right here. And you can see, can I hold it up and I don't know if you can see it. Ooh, there it is. It looks pretty bright, but if you aim it down toward the ground, it's actually not that bright. So it's better than nothing, but I'm gonna turn it off, but it's not optimal. Most people these days have a smartphone, so learn how to use that flashlight app if you don't know how, but it's actually more functional if you have a real flashlight in your purse, in your backpack, in your car, wherever you're going. Have a small flashlight that's very bright, very useful. I have friends who go out with me to dinner occasionally, and if we're someplace where it's dark, people say, hey, where's that flashlight? I can't read the menu. They have lots of uses, okay? Keep an extra flashlight in your garage. Keep an extra flashlight in your desk at work or any place else where you go frequently where you can store something. Flashlights are your friends. And the nice thing is they don't depend on the power companies that we've all come to depend on. They just need batteries, and batteries are recyclable. So that's one of my safety tips. Everybody needs augmented light sources. We often talk to people about reliable footwear, what kinds of shoes to wear. I'm dead set against anybody wearing high heels for any reason. Anything higher than a 1-inch heel is too high. And ladies, I'm going to single you out because men don't usually wear stiletto heels. Those really narrow heels that are less than 1 inch wide, you don't want to wear them. They're not your friends. And the people who design those shoes, they're not your friends either, okay? The heel on your shoe should be as wide as the heel on your foot, okay? Think about it that way. When you go shoe shopping, if they show you a shoe where the heel is narrower than your heel, don't buy them, okay? And tell the shoe salesman you're not interested. Really important, okay? In general, that's a rule of thumb for any kind of shoes. And the toe box, where your toes go, that should be wide enough for your toes to spread out inside the shoe. And this is in general, whether you have an acoustic neuroma or not. You need shoes that are wide enough for your toes to spread out in, because when you walk, what you do is you spread your toes out inside the shoe. And that makes your foot a little bit wider. So you need a little bit of room inside the shoe to spread your toes out when you're rocking your weight over your toes, when you're moving your weight forward, okay? So if somebody shows you shoes that are really narrow, that have those long pointed toes, say, ugh, I don't do that. Those are not for me. Those are for, you know, silly teenagers who don't know any better, all right? But really buy shoes that fit. And also buy socks that fit inside your shoes, very important. If you have some peripheral neuropathy, as well as the acoustic neuroma, you want to wear shoes that don't have a lot of squishiness in the sole, because you want to be able to feel your foot as you hit the ground. So something that's too squishy, not so good for you. I spend a lot of time talking to people about their shoes and their footwear in general. Let's see, other safety tips that everybody should know about. Those are my big ones. Grab bars are good in the bathroom. Make sure your bath mat has a little rubber backing on it or something like that, so that it's non-skid. Things that slide are not good for you. They are not your friends, all right? Handholds are your friends. Make sure you have adequate lighting in your bathroom, especially because what do we do when we jump in the shower? We all take off our glasses. You can't see as well. So you want to make sure that there's adequate lighting in your shower. Let's see. Things with wheels are your friends. If you have a little cart, if your balance is a little bit off and you have to move things from, say, your kitchen into the dining room, a little cart with wheels is very useful. I don't have very far to go in my house, so I just carry things on a tray. But if you have a big house or a long walk, or if you're one of these people whose balance is not very good, wheels are your friends, okay? Never be afraid to use things with wheels. Trying to think, what are the other big things that I talk about? Those are kind of the big issues that I talk to people about. It's really important for everybody, no matter what their health problems are, or if they don't have any, to maintain their strength and their balance lifelong. So everybody needs to exercise. You may not want to lift weights. You might not want to go out and do sports. If you're like me and you're basically a couch potato, ugh, I don't like weightlifting, but I go out for a walk almost every day. And on days when I'm not working, I go and walk several miles. Everybody who's ambulatory needs to do some walking every day. And it's good to walk outside if you can, to deal with the little perturbations that we get from walking on the sidewalk or going up and down a curb and sort of walking around the general world. But walking is really good for you. You need to maintain your bone health, your cardiovascular fitness, your muscle strength. If you have other health problems such as arthritis, you maybe want to consult with your physician or go get 1 or 2 visits with a physical therapist to get an overall program, or work with a trainer from a health club. These days, nobody's going to the gyms, which is good because most of them have really poor ventilation, but still you may want to get a consult on Zoom from somebody. But exercise is your friend. Being sedentary, staying on the couch or in your favorite easy chair, not your friend. There's nothing wrong with doing that once in a while, but every day, everybody needs to get up and move around. No matter what your health issues are, everybody needs to get up and do that. And a lot of evidence has come out in the past 10 years showing that exercise is good for your cognition as well as for your physical health, because it's good for your brain, because when you exercise, you're actually pumping blood upstairs to your brain. So it's good for your brain cells, okay? So just something to keep in mind. You don't have to do vigorous sports if you don't like them. Here in Houston, lots of people play golf and play tennis. And to me, the idea of hitting a little ball with a stick is like, oh my God, why do you do that? I understand why people like to do it. I don't. But there are lots of other things to do. If you like yoga, do yoga. There are Zoom classes for yoga or Tai Chi. Tai Chi is wonderful because it's low impact. Also, both of them are mentally very relaxing. There are other kinds of martial arts that are worth looking into. And if you're somebody who had a background in having done some martial arts, go back to it. A couple of years ago, I had a guy come in, post-op acoustic neuroma, distraught because he was off balance. And it turns out he had a black belt in karate and he had to stop doing it. And I said, what are you coming to me for? Go back and do karate. And he lived about 3 hours away from here. We had a lot of people from Western Louisiana, Western Louisiana, or very far east Texas, and he was one of those people. So it wasn't going to be convenient for him to come back and work with me anyway. And I said, you know what to do. Go back and teach yourself karate. And then he came in for his 6-month follow-up and he looked fabulous. And I said, what'd you do? He worked on his karate and he got much better. So, you know, if you like to do that kind of thing, go back and do it. Take a Zoom class. There are lots of things you can do over Zoom these days. People have gotten really creative about that. Or meet an instructor outside in a park. But get busy and get doing things. And if you don't like to do those kinds of things, go walking. Put on your trainers or running shoes and just go out for a good walk. Okay, the weather's getting better in most parts of the country these days, so it's worth doing that. So maintaining or improving strength, really important. Maintaining your bone health, your muscle strength, your cardiovascular fitness, really important. If you have cardiovascular issues, you should have a conversation with your cardiologist about what you're allowed to do and what's good for you to do. There are physical therapists and some occupational therapists who specialize in cardiac rehabilitation. The larger hospital centers will have people with that kind of certification. It's worth asking about. Vestibular rehabilitation focuses on dealing with vertigo habituation exercises, and also balance therapy exercises. And there are lots of different exercises that people use. But the general concept is to start small, to start with standing balance and gradually increase the difficulty of the exercises to teach people new balance skills. I do that a lot. Occasionally we see people who have acoustic neuromas who also have benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. It's rare, but it does happen because anything that upsets the, I don't want to say equilibrium, but the way the inner ear works can cause BPPV. So if you're having particular vertigo when you bend down, when you look up, when you roll over in bed, you want to get your physician or your therapist to check you for benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. That's treatable pretty easily. Let's see. I'm going to stop here and take questions since I've been babbling for a while. Have I said anything that sparked a question? Does anybody have a question for me? Anything you want to say?